Sheikh Hamdan's girlfriend knew his wife was coming. She waited anyway, she knew. That is what makes this story different from every other love story in the complicated private life of Sheikh Hamdan. The woman who did not know, the one who was kept in the dark, the one who found out in pieces, the one whose discovery of the truth was a shock that restructured everything she thought she understood about her life. That is one kind of story, a painful kind, the kind that produces a specific grief for the version of the life you believed you were living before the truth arrived and replaced it. But she was not that woman. She knew from early enough that the knowing was not a revelation but a condition. A context she had accepted before the feelings had finished making the acceptance necessary. She knew his wife was coming. She knew the arranged marriage was being planned. She knew that the official future of Sheikh Hamdan was being constructed around a woman who was not her, and that the construction of that future was not going to stop because of anything she felt or anything Hamdan felt or anything that was real between them in the private hours that the world was never going to be permitted to see. She knew all of that, and she waited anyway. The waiting was not passive. That is the first thing to understand about what she did and why it deserves to be understood as something more than the simple stubbornness of a woman who loved someone and refused to let go. The waiting was a choice, made repeatedly, in the specific way that choices are made when a person has weighed the available options and arrived at a conclusion that most people around them would have considered irrational, but that made perfect sense from the inside. She could have left. Nobody was keeping her. The relationship had no official status that would have made leaving complicated from a legal or institutional perspective. She was free to go, to build a life somewhere else, to invest the years she was giving to loving someone who was never going to be fully available into someone who could be. She was free to do all of that, and she chose not to. Because what she had with Hamdan, the specific, real, private quality of what existed between them in the hours when the official story was not making its demands, was worth the waiting to her, in her specific calculation of what things were worth. She waited because the thing she was waiting for was worth the wait. The arranged marriage was not a surprise to her. The timeline of it was known within the circle of people who were close enough to Hamdan's private life to have access to the information that the official story was not yet sharing with the world. She knew when the planning began. She knew when the decision solidified. She knew when the date was set. Each of those moments of knowing was its own specific kind of difficult. The kind of difficult that requires a person to look at a painful fact clearly and decide, again, whether the overall calculation still holds, whether the thing she had with him was still worth what the thing was costing. She asked herself that question at each stage of the knowing. And at each stage, the answer she arrived at was the same. Yes, still worth it. Still the choice she would make if she were making it again. Still worth the waiting, even knowing what the waiting was going to look like and what it was going to produce in the way of official recognition, which was nothing, which was always going to be nothing, which she had accepted was going to be nothing from the beginning. The wedding happened. That day, the specific day when the official marriage was formalized and Sheikha Shaika bint Syed Al Thani became the publicly acknowledged wife of the Crown Prince of Dubai, was not a day that she spent unaware of what was happening. She knew, she felt it. The specific weight of that day in the life of a woman who has been loving someone privately while the world is watching them make official commitments to someone else is a weight that has no adequate description in ordinary language. It is not simple grief, not jealousy in any clean sense, something more layered. The grief of watching something public happen that is in direct contradiction with the private reality you have been living. The specific loneliness of feeling something enormous on a day when the world around you is celebrating the opposite of what you feel and has no idea that you are there, feeling it. She waited through the wedding, through the early months of the official marriage, through the period when Hamdan was navigating the impossible space between the official life and the private one, present in both, fully in neither, managing the separation with the specific effort of a man who has always been required to keep his worlds from touching. She was still there, still the person he came back to in the private hours, still the one who knew the real version of him in the way that only someone who has been given access to that version for a sustained period of time can know it. And the knowing, the sustained, detailed, genuine knowing of who he actually was underneath the composure and the title was what the waiting was for. What did she believe was going to happen? That is the question that the people who learn this story always ask. What outcome was the waiting oriented toward? The honest answer is probably that the outcome she was waiting for was not a specific event, but a reality. The reality of being the person Hamdan actually came back to, of being the relationship that was real while the official one was managed, of being the one who had access to the genuine version of a man that the world only ever got to see the managed version of. She was not waiting for the wife to disappear, or for the official marriage to end, or for a public announcement that would have given her life an official shape. She was waiting for the private reality, the one she was already living, to continue being what it was. And it did continue, for longer than most people know. The private reality held even as the official one struggled. She remained the person he came back to through the years of the arranged marriage's slow unraveling. She was there when things between him and Sheikha collapsed. She was the one he turned toward when the official story had finally exhausted itself. She gave him a child. She built the home with him. She was, in every way, that mattered to the real life rather than the official one, the primary relationship. She knew his wife was coming. She knew exactly what was being arranged and why and what it was going to mean for the official picture of his life. She knew all of it before the knowing was required of her. And she waited anyway. Because some things are worth waiting for even when the waiting is painful. Even when the world around you is building an official story that has no room for you in it. Even when the patience required is the kind that most people do not possess, and that the people who do possess it rarely receive the credit they deserve for having held on to it through everything that holding required. She waited, and he came back. And for a time, the most real time of his adult life by most accounts, she had the thing she had been waiting for. Not the title, never the title, but the reality, the private, genuine, fully committed reality of being the person that Sheikh Hamdan had always, underneath everything, already chosen. Subscribe to this channel and hit the bell. Every week, I bring you the real story of Sheikh Hamdan, the women who waited, the things they waited for, and the truth about what the waiting was worth and what it eventually cost.